Welcome to Building MPTC's first Z degree, Early Childhood Education and the Power of Collaboration session. My name is Dr. Katie Roberts, Director at Wisconsin Technical College System Office. We are recording this session and there will be Q&A time at the end, so please share your questions in the chat or hold them until the end, either way. If you need to turn on captions, please click the three dots at the top of the meeting, click on language and speech, and then turn on live captions. Those directions are also in the chat. There also is a link to Microsoft support if you need further support. All resources and recordings will be available on the WTCS Faculty Summit site, and our goal is to have those ready within the next week. If you were in Wednesday sessions, they're really close to being ready already. And then you will also receive an email when the resources are available. And then really quickly, community engagement, just listen actively, be present in the room, be curious, take space, but also make space. So this is our second this is our second day of Faculty Summit. And I did Wednesday night and we had a fantastic attendance, even better today, with almost 500 people registered for Faculty Summit. Thanks for taking your time out of your busy work and family schedules to be here. We hope that all of our presentations that your colleagues, your peers are presenting bring value to your work and professional life. At the end of the session, I'll put in a link to a feedback document. Please take time to fill out that document to help us to understand why you're here, what you're getting out of things, and what we should do moving forward, and share an action step along the way as well. I will turn over the session to our presenters, and thank you again for being here. Jennifer?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jennifer Irish, and I am the early childhood instructor at Moraine Park Technical College, along with my colleague Anne and Kelly, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves when their slides are ready. So I hope that's okay. Thank you, Kelly. So we chose to do this because we wanted to help our students save some money. So early childhood was a very strategic choice for a zero textbook cost program, as our program often enrolls working adults, many of them who are already working in the childcare field, which is a low-paying field. Despite being highly educated and needing certain qualifications, the median wage is actually quite low. So you can see the statistic on the screen. In 2023, the median wage in Wisconsin across all childcare settings was $13.78 per hour, which is very difficult to live on and to raise a family on, and so we knew that reducing textbook costs, or completely eliminating them, would have a direct and meaningful impact on student success and retention, which is especially critical in Wisconsin, where there are several childcare deserts and a workforce crisis. So by removing these financial barriers through ZTC, zero textbook costs, Moraine Park can better support students in completing those early childhood qualifications so they can enter the field more quickly, all while reducing financial stress that is often associated with just your typical college courses. So we are helping our early childhood students save about $1,500 per semester, which is quite large if you ask me. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we did have some challenges in maneuvering this and figuring out if this was going to be a good choice for us. There were a couple of tools that are necessary for our early childhood field, but are also proprietary. And that includes ITERs, ECHRs. These are environmental rating scales that are used by child care centers and by Wisconsin's Young Star system. So we wanted our students to become familiar with these tools, but we didn't want to require them to purchase them. So luckily there's a lot of open educational resources available, and we were able to find something that still aligned with our course outcomes and still gave our students that experience with evaluating an environment based on quality. It was a very hefty time commitment with just 2 faculty members. We had to rewrite all 14 of our program classes, and we did this in well, we're still doing it. We're doing it across per semester and over the course of 2 years. It's been quite the hefty task, but Anne and I are doing it with the help of Kelly, who will join in a little bit. So Anne and I have one of those other challenges is that we needed to learn a little bit more about Canvas and a little bit more about the technology tools that were going to help us make this a success. And so Kelly, who is the instructional designer at Moraine Park, really helped us through this process. Another challenge is that as any faculty knows, if you change a textbook, that's essentially changing the entire scope of the course. So it really helped us focus on accessibility and meeting course competencies when we just really had to revise everything based on the new and free textbook options. So challenges, but also benefits.
Good morning. I'm Ann Schrinkler. So glad you could join us today. So I'm going to talk about some of the benefits that we discovered within this process. And fortunately, the early childhood education program had OER choices. That was the best news for us because that allowed us to use a variety of resources and methods. So one of those methods that we used was collaboration. Moraine Park and Northwood's ECE faculty collaborated together. I enrolled in the WTCS OER 101 course, and it turned out that one of my Northwood's colleagues also enrolled in the course. And by the time we finished the course, we had both decided that we wanted to dip our toes into OER textbooks. And we decided to collaborate. We found a textbook that was already in existence that we could modify. And so we did this process by sharing a document in our OneDrive so that multiple faculty could work on writing different chapters at the same time. So we doled out the work, which made it much more doable, that we each wrote specific chapters, and then we reviewed those chapters. And when we were satisfied with the outcome, then we were able to share it with our colleagues across the technical college system. Another collaboration was we worked with MWTC. They already had some OER textbooks. Some we adopted as they were, and some we adapted to meet Moraine Park's needs. And that's the beauty of the OER textbooks. And then the ECE curriculum is state aligned, and we have fantastic faculty across the state who collaborated together, and they wrote some OER textbooks that are specific to our state aligned curriculum. What we did for adapting textbooks, for one course, we found a textbook that there was a portion in one that we really liked and a portion in another that we really liked, and we were able to combine those together to create our own new textbook modified from the other 2 books. Another example of adapting books was we found a textbook that we really liked for one specific course. We were able to remove chapters that didn't align with our curriculum, and we were able to take out any content that we weren't planning to use, making this book fit with our needs for our course competencies. And then we also were fortunate enough to find a few OER textbooks that didn't require any modifications on our part. Next slide, please, Kelly. Thank you. All right. We found out some additional benefits that we didn't foresee when we started this process. And one is working with our K-12 partners. So Moraine Park offers dual credit enrollment in some of our early childhood courses, and so they're taught at the high schools. And speaking with some of our high school counterparts, we learned that they have very limited funding and resources. A couple of them shared with us that they have multiple students sharing one textbook. Now, that's not the ideal situation that we want for students' learning environment. Now, with OER textbooks inserted into all of our courses, it takes the burden off of those instructors, and it makes that textbook accessible to all of the students at the high school level. OER adoption, as I mentioned before, we modified one course to align with Wisconsin child care codes and Wisconsin data. And by doing that, we've made it much easier for our students to become familiar with the Wisconsin child care code, because we were able to take the parts we wanted to highlight and put those right into the OER textbook. Now students don't have to go to another source to look that information up. We were able to combine that source, making it simpler for students to just stay with our textbook and not use multiple sources. The bookstore. So I have found myself in the situation where I have had to revise my course schedule because students were waiting for textbooks to be delivered. Perhaps they were delayed, whatever the case might be. Very frustrating for students, frustrating for the instructor as well. That is gone now. Students have access to their textbooks on day one. Whew, I am so happy. That is a big stress reliever. We have also found that there's less wasted class time, because on the first week of classes, we're able to dive right into our content because we know that everyone has their textbook available to begin doing any reading and participation within the course. ADA accessibility. Moraine Park, we use Canvas as our LMS. And I'm assuming that many other LMSs also offer some type of textbook reader that students can use. Some of the OER textbooks that we are using are hosted on LibreText. LibreText has built-in accessibility features, and they support external tools for reading textbooks, and they have other accessibility options available as well. And then I previously mentioned that our ECE statewide collaboration has written some textbooks specific for our early childhood program, and each of those textbooks are going to be available as audiobooks for students as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kelly.
All right, thank you. So again, Kelly Carpenter, I am coming at this from an instructional design focus. And the three of us, kind of combined our lessons learned throughout the work that we've been doing. And we really decided a lot of the things that we're doing, we always wanted to put students first. Is this best for the students? Is this going to help them succeed? And so keeping that at the forefront really helped us continue as we were, Hannah and Jennifer were adapting all the course material with the updated competencies, and we were thinking about OER and the learning material that we were using. We wanted to keep that at the forefront. So we used that to create a template, right? We always hear the students don't love that every course they're in looks and feels and flows differently. So we made an ECE Canvas module template so that every ECE course not only follows the MPTC template, which is a pretty plain and generic, but we follow that as well as follow a little bit more ECE focus. So we added in some colors. We actually color coded every time there's learning material, it's a certain color. Every time there's an activity, there's a certain color on the page. We have icons that all look the same throughout the entire course, just making it feel a little bit more familiar to them as they go course to course throughout the program. We also created the OER textbook module. So every course that they're in, they see that module. We explain what OER means. We're just assuming that students might not know what this means to them and what their instructors intentionally did to save them money. So they start out with the how to find and use their textbook. We'll put any other additional reading materials that they may need, knowing that some of our students do actually print off their books. They may not be able to use their phone. If they're working in a childcare center and they have some downtime, they may be able to bring a printed copy to read. So we do provide PDFs of all the resources that we offer. And we also realized anecdotally from a lot of student feedback that students were doing majority of their coursework on their phones. It's just the way of it. So we took that as an opportunity as we were redeveloping all these courses to make them mobile friendly from the start. So I typically, once Anne and Jennifer are done making all their edits in Canvas and we're ready to turn the sandbox into a master, I'll actually go through the whole course on my phone and I'll pick out anything that I can't read, or maybe it doesn't flow right, or it's getting a little bit smaller font, and we'll tweak those as we're going. So another lesson learned, as Anna described, don't be afraid to adapt OER. It sounds a little bit scary, but once you get into the flow, just continually thinking about our students, removing pages so that they aren't printing those and using their money if they need to print a copy, taking out extraneous information that we're just not going to cover so that they don't feel overwhelmed if they're looking through it all. Another lesson learned that I think both Anne and Jennifer have dived into is just using AI more. How can we use AI to help support the curriculum rebuild, using it to draft scenarios or help us? We made persona kids that we had AI helped us draft through a whole course. So just getting to use AI in addition to the OER, it's such a great companion. Having the AI train on the OER to help create some of that content is a great way to help save faculty time. And then as Anne alluded to, lessons learned, take that OER 101 course. It's free for instructors to take. It's really well thought out. It helps you kind of paint the bigger picture, not only of OER, locally or in Wisconsin, but just across the nation. This is a really cool and big movement that just keeps getting bigger. So those are some of the things that we compiled together as we were thinking through, what have we learned while we've been doing this? And then just our collaboration, me as an instructional designer, what that means at Moraine Park is that I'm embedded. So this is new to Moraine Park in the last year. I work with 2 to 3 different divisions and really get to know those faculty. We get to understand the programs. Faculty obviously know all their content, but I can come in and help, give them ideas on how to make it accessible, how to be more consistent and student friendly in the design of the courses. And so we were able to brainstorm the entire program together, identify all the OER up front, create that ECE specific Canvas template, and made sure that all of the learning material activities and assessments that we were going to put in all the courses aligned with all of our course competencies and our program outcomes. So this has been a really cool, and again, I'm new, I've been in my role here for a year, but it's been really cool to meet with them almost weekly for a year, to be able to have that relationship building, and we kind of trust each other in our judgment. So that's been really neat in a collaborative piece. If you are able to reach out to your instructional designers, even if you don't have an embedded model, they're usually really willing to help and talk through how you could use OER in your courses. And so, okay, last slide. I know it's going fast, but really, if you're interested, right, you're excited, you want to do this in your program, things to think about is just, even if you've looked and searched for OER, I always tell faculty, just do one more search. Even in the last 6 months, I think there's so many people working on different projects across the US that things are popping up all the time. So I know Katie put this link, I think, or we can put it in the chat, but WSTAC Open's new webpage does have a course resources tab. And Hillary Barker is just going to release all of the last grant cycles OER projects that all of the WTCS schools worked on. This will be a great resource to just see, is there somebody else in the system that is working on a project that you are thinking might help your program? And then also, if you haven't used Google Advanced Search, this is a really easy way now that I can typically find Pressbooks or other openly licensed content books that maybe you just didn't find in a repository or digging around anywhere else. So this is another way to just start looking. I think that was the one thing when we were first talking, is it seemed really daunting. And then when we actually looked through all 14 of the ECE program courses, we were like, oh, we actually found something that would work for every course. It didn't quite seem as daunting. To connect with your OER champions at your institution, there is at least one person at every tech college that has that OER champion status. Such a funny name, we keep joking. But they really are willing to help and talk through what this might look like. And then I think the part two that we were thinking was just not going to pan out was the general education courses. But once we did an audit of the available OER within our gen studies, we were really surprised we had so many. So I think that too has come a long way. And so one of the things that Moraine Park has is a more generalized general studies requirement. So instead of saying you have to take, intro to psychology or intro to psychology, they just say you need to take a 3-credit behavioral science course. And then within all of those options, there were many OER that students could choose from. And so it helps that student be able to kind of pick and choose, I'm going to take that course because that is an OER book and I don't have to pay for it. So just another thing that we had kind of found as we were thinking through, is it actually feasible to have a Z degree? So I am going to leave it at that. My timer just went off. Look at that. And then leave it open for questions.
Dr. Barker put a question in the chat. What are student reactions thus far to using and accessing their OER for these courses?
I'm looking at Anna Jennifer for.
Yeah,
I think you've got
haven't
a couple.
had any direct feedback from a lot of the students, but they are definitely appreciative of not being required to spend the money on a textbook that will never open. And so now if the textbook is free, then it makes it a little bit easier to navigate. I don't know, Anne, have you had any direct feedback?
I have not had any, nobody has said, hey,
Yeah.
Anne, we love this free textbook. But when I've had some one-on-one conversations with students, I have pointed out that we've revised the courses and, now the textbooks, and they're like, yes, that's so nice. So
I think many students don't realize that that was a big switch for us, right? So a lot of those newer students coming in are like, oh, okay, cool. They may not realize that this is something that we're moving to.
I see a question asking if we had to create any new OER for this program. We did not. We were able to find open resources available to us. But for our overall early childhood education program, we have that statewide collaboration that is writing 4 books specific to our program courses, and some of them will cover more than one. Some of those textbooks will cover more than one course. But for what we're doing right now at Moraine Park, we didn't create any new OER book from scratch.
And I'm the director at the state office over early childhood. And there are 2 things that I have heard from faculty. One is that it takes away the excuse of the student not being able to get the textbook, and that, and them not being able to read right away or whatever that's required in the syllabus. The other thing is that from the standpoint of creating OER, we're creating some consistency in what the content actually is and what's being approved to be used because we're doing peer review. And so not only are we getting the expertise of the faculty members writing the chapters, but we're also getting feedback from the other faculty members and pertinent people to make sure that we're following kind of a structure that gives some similarity and some consistency across the board. Dr. Barker asks another question. Curious about the K-12 dual credit reactions. Has it been easy for them to use?
We've had very positive feedback from our K-12 partners. As I mentioned before, it's been a burden off of them. Now all of their students, each and every one, can access the textbook. So they are really enjoying this, the availability of the OER textbooks and the way that we have revised our courses, as Kelly was explaining, with the colors for assignments and having the persona children we develop for the students to follow throughout, like our child development course from the beginning to end, to see these two children grow. So we've had excellent feedback from our K-12 partners.
Yes, they are inspiring, very much so. Okay, well, time is already gone and this has been amazing. Thank you, ladies, for being great advocates for our students and innovating in our programming. Please, yes, give them kudos for their great work, and also take some time to complete the feedback survey. I have the link in the chat. If you have a couple moments, it should just take a couple moments to do the survey, and it will help us greatly to hear from you and hear what's good and what you'd like to see in the next year. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you.